first of whether and minor rather and whether rather to probable to also to probable to could be suitable. Some accountable reasons are similar to original combination. On the topic of suppose, right, consider at current from noticing of a lot of the ongoing events that 现在实际变化 and ongoing events, etc., and associated with whether and the similars and whether they're similar to us, whether and other and from the numerous ongoing recent and minor repeated frauds could be to probable to and whether recent to probable to could be to probable to also suitable for whether suitable for seeing and whether with bracket marks for whether to could be to probable to could be and whether reason they are complete enough to probable to countable to could be whether it could be from and whether it's suitable. By having fragmented states, which in a way not so much fragmented, it's return, and it's a logical solution. Right? It's a great solution, whether it's a suitable solution, and whether another. Whether it's a suitable solution, because we have whether also other adjectives and whether amongst other and whether other words of whether recent and whether other words of maybe comparative clear or whether more suitable or whether more greater, whether greater or whether more greater or whether more suitable to and whether recent there also other a bit of word contest here to probably to suitable for whether to also to probable to be of because it's being a national engine. National engine's been operated for a very long time. My parents more than a few generations more than that. Whether more than a few generation, and the interest in the energy towards such whether enthusiasm not so much there anymore. And to have such a large chunk that spans across multiple regions, we see municipality that's heavily deteriorated, not having fragmented states at a size like how the associated recent modern age history, whether modern periods, whether modern era, whether recent decades, and a bit more of this Irish Republic independence, whether this Irish history. It's a great example, probably. And check out the size of Irish, and check out also the ethnic and whether the composure, the general alice of many of the traits and many of the metrics of Irish. That's how actually a lot of the places should be, whether also in Rio. But because it's a bit Latino, it's a bit Spanish. It's a bit over there. It's a bit not really that much Spanish. It's a bit by the language itself. It denotes a different, a bit social environment. It might be more fairy. There, not so much fairy. When whether fairy, F-E-R-R, but it's more of the alligator. But may not be a great example there, and there it made it may be more closer to somewhere near the might be also whether also maybe whether maybe the some of the DGen regions there of another location or whether another region on the global geographics. So there's that, and whether reason that will be suitable of, right? And whether that to go be of whether to go be of whether to be of whether just whether to go be of 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 and whether suitable of probably similar and whether it's the same and whether the origin formulated was as which is whether reasons mentioned the probable of a bit whether the probable of one within whether with bracket mark and whether within and whether with bracket marks and whether bracket mark and whether reasons and whether bracket mark and whether bracket marks of and whether bracket marks whether reason and whether bracket and whether reason and whether bracket marks for the probable to also suitable and whether to also to be a football and compared to be considered and whether a bit better enough. On our way to home, on the jogging, or whether on the trail, I could often turn enfeeblements into campaign, and such a few slight moments still be able to find something from there. Not as from the sluggish fume, but there was quite a performance. Probably could be from whether performance there, whether it's capable, whether potent, whether great performance, whether there was quite a potent, whether reason and whether quite performance reason, reason minor, whether minor repetition, whether minor repeater, it's probable to give, and whether on the throughout the ways throughout many numerous decades, whether not really to coincide in a match with the recent their countable probable minutes ago or more, or some moments before there was mention of the word decades. The Gorham's probable were not quite able. They may faltered to perhaps some of our spells, and perhaps that's why. And they may have. It may be that they're the ones, or whether they had quite depended on us, and we didn't tell them something. They ended up having the evolution trait, or whether became more of Gorham's and then not became wheter, and now they couldn't pronounce the wheter. Gorham's have this, or some of the Gorham's have this enthusiasm, some sort of, whether even fetish of, let's see, didn't do it. Whether it somehow resulted to, and can be considered of not so much other section, not just the crest watch, but the watch of whether it's and whether watch of its action. And definite, and whether not so much, and whether not from others' actions. It became whether others' results are also to whether more of indirect actions. It becomes they do not announce that they actually been helping in the ways that they've been holding themselves from doing worse. And as much as they're supposed to be virtue, but the effectiveness, in a way, that was the ongoing. And there wasn't enough force to apply to it. So in a way, a bit of argument could be on that, whether a bit of credit, so whether chips, whether assignment of, whether distribution of, whether there can be some debate on that, and whether also arguments of, and it becomes, then they be undercredit for this, right? And that something can be large because some of those growers can be quite the numbers and have had numerous positions in societies. Whether a lot are welfare and a lot are involved with passive aggressiveness, whether they knew they would done this much, whether they should have done this much, whether it's insolence new or whether insolence going new, whether at first of, or whether before, or whether at first of, whether recent, whether at first of, and whether at first of. Whether at first of, and whether reason, and whether at first of, and whether at first of, and whether also at first of probable, whether and whether at first of is probable to also to degree of, and whether to probable of could be suitable for whether to probable of the suitable whether recent minor repronunciation there to be probable to be suitable for whether and whether to probable of the suitable of and whether Gorham knew that what and whether recent could be considered as complete enough. Recent there minor repeated probable to be, and whether insulin and whether Gorham insolent Gorham knew whether first of whether Gorham knew it was that much of hideousness and whether passive aggressive hideousness, whether passive aggressive hideous and whether passive aggressive contaminations or whether criminalities. While the and yet it could be that we have to be catching on to something of minor factor, and whether minor factor is probable also to go be from whether to probable of to go be of the probable also to go be and to go be of and whether to probable of the suitable of and whether to probable of to go be of and whether recent to probable of to also to go be of and whether to probable of the suitable of and whether recent to probable of to go be of and whether recent to probable of to also to go be of and whether at their location at location there and whether it was minor rather and whether rather at first of and whether to probable of to could be of recent there was the probable of to also to could be of probable of in which of which and whether it's probable to also and whether recent to and whether to also to probable of to could be of to probable to also to be and whether to probable of to could be of to probable also to could be of and whether to probable of to could be of. So if the reason to probable of to could be of and whether competed in it reason there before and whether at to probable of to could be of to could be at probable of to could be considered. And whether to could be of to probable of to could be of also and whether to probable of to could be of. It may be that it could come from us considering it way a lot for those. Then there had been some of those, although for that case there might be comparative a lot more than of the case of the there's somebody other ones, or whether it's a bit more distant than the other, if the other denotates and represents and whether denotates and whether represents and whether represents within bracket mark and whether which bracket marks of and whether denotates the whether represents just as recent and whether also to affirm whether complete at the recent there to that's always have a parallelism other if it represents if it denotates whether represents or whether if it represents as dimension of whether the parallelism whether parallels whether parallelism and whether and what's minor rather whether parallelism there whether the parallelism there or whether parallelism of whether reason the parallelism to from whether before for the probable to also to from whether to probable to and to whether to whether and to could be of from whether to probable to could be of and whether reason to probable to suitable from whether to probable to could be of to probable to also to could be of from whether to probable to could be of. The cases of growing say sort of there have been sort of this dependency and then there really wasn't compared to that that one can be much larger and whether recent as was the reason for their reason before thereof and whether not as much of a larger how much of a factor, whether the largeness of value, whether any probable importance, on whether n minor to bottom to, and whether minor to bottom to recent of the probable to be, or whether recent, and whether recent minor to bottom to the probable to also to go be, from whether to also to suitable from whether the probable of to suitable from whether the probable to go be of the probable to also to go be to suitable from whether to go be of, and whether the probable of to go be of the probable to also to go be of from whether the probable of to go be of. What happens if Morpheus cannot really mention certain things? Then what would it become? Right? Too much distortion sets, Nazism surrounding them is viciously out there. They're requesting for blood toll price. It's quite a hideous group. Represents Nazism. It is the monolithic hate group, and it's also the single source of the vestiges of the social issues and problems out there. Every single social problem, the major ones especially, immediate and whether transfers to whether can be routed to whether one can notice and soon find in whether those can be noticeable being a source, a unsourced, whether and also whether reason whether and that's unsourced. Whether reason, whether and whether and reason and whether and this unsource of the vestige of the social issues and problems. If it's 1v1 situation, notice it's in the high school, the place, one of the places being this giant, it's being where the progress is easy mode, while there are plenty brutalist hardcore, they really have this dishonesty reflex, or whether really quite dishonesty there, whether they have this dishonesty there, or whether and with the reason whether quite dishonesty. The word have, whether to of word have, there whether there of whether to of whether the word have there can be whether word have there both instances, or whether occurrence, or whether whose words they are, whether the words, and whether the word have, or whether the word, and whether either one to whether since at recent beginning, whether at recent whether words and whether word have there could be quite providence. It may be suitable with Nazism have. Whether sluggish possess, and whether Nazism possess or Nazism, whether a meaning, or whether some name context, or whether name context is probable to suitable for whether Nazism have probable to also to believe. Recent considerable as consider as minor remark, or whether minor to moderate remark, whether moderate remark also, and whether moderate remark to probable could be suitable, and whether it's probable it could be affirmed, whether at the comes inside and say whether at before the probable to both, and whether either whether to both, and whether the probable to could be of.
你一定要练你的背啊！我不希望你还没老的时候就忽背啊，听到没？把这个中文 do something for me，OK？、明天把这个电脑放到地下去啊，抽空这2天 ，OK？Agree？Agree？Agree？你是木性的，金克木，你知道吧？这些都是金的东西，都会克你，对你身体健康不利，知道吧？好，就这样，明天起来工作。
reason there was the recent node there was considered as a minor node, when compared to whether recent there was one of the nodes that it was covered of, and there are other nodes. As recent mentioned, whether recent presented whether other nodes, and whether recent mentioned whether they are, and whether they're 12. About each of those ones were what the ones presented were, and whether those ones as similar to the ones presented were, whether as similar to whether as similar to could be considered from whether were presented from whether were the notes, or whether were presented of, or whether reason they are mentioned of, whether reason they are of. It's about selecting a better choice than necessarily having counted advantage of the antecedents. Right? In a way, we haven't even begun counting the antecedents. It was soon reached to a very great extent. There are vast amounts of these, and almost all the shops open to them, and the continuous flood of all these brutes that are graduated from these mass rampant scam involved places. Didn't academia really falter to these mass freaks that really have no cultural roots? They've been very tremendously provided, and a lot of it, and plus, and whether reason there, whether much of are allocated towards a fake humanoid, whether to a citizen card holder, and approximately whether whether quote mark is whether citizen card holder is, with a similar format there in recent mention of whether they're in reason of whether they're into whether they're in reason of whether with whether within and whether with bracket mark, whether bracket mark, whether they're in to or whether they're in reason to whether reason they're into a probable also to be may not be that trust endorsed with of reason there. Something of minor remark, whether reason there, minor remark, or whether minor remark reason there, whether minor remark reason there, whether reason there, minor remark, whether minor remark reason there, to probable to could be considered. Whether reason to probable to could be considered false, to probable also to whether it's probable to could be false, or whether it's probable to could be. How many Nazi sites out there? Vast amounts. The lot app makers are not making apps. They're as if some employees of some cocaine run by a criminal boss, and the criminal boss is sort of gluten. Used to be right. And men really deteriorate fast, whether the male types, after whether not female types also, whether not females, or whether after each of about 60s, 70s, they become another whole different person. That's a trait that should be out there. That's a trait that's sort of suitable. It's a operational trait at the level of a sort of should be if the person's operating, and whether some of the criminal boss they're operating should be at least considered at the whether at the routine level of something of at the level of whether a trait and whether at routine level from whether of a trait to from whether at a trait or from whether of and whether reason minor rather and whether of then at whether of trait of whether trait of whether another whether trait of and to word to whether word to within and whether with bracket mark and whether bracket marks of whether reason within whether within and whether with bracket marks to probable to also suitable for whether the probable to also to be of probable, and whether the probable of to be of the probable of to also to be of, and whether the probable of to be of the probable to also to be of, and to whether the probable of to suitable for to probable of to also to be of, and whether to also to probable for to be of, and whether probable for to be of the probable to also to probable of to be of, and whether the probable to be of. Are doing those tasks in trade for security. It's like as if they are not making apps. And numerous souls have numerous predators, whether numerous souls have numerous predators, or it could be considered for whether have certain dangers involved at the functionality level of these. So it does whether pluralism data, not by the Nazism contaminated pseudoism offered of this, it comes from because the current hasn't been sort of this, and or whether there's current, there's no evidence of, therefore that's why the evidence associated with the alternative scenario, not with this scenario. If there's any more pseudo, there will be military actions involved. Those will be militarily engaged with submarines, warships, satellite assists, orbital dumps, or whether laser beams from orbit, or whether orbital beams, or whether missiles. There'll be tons of those. As they are quite cancer numbered, the zomberists, whether the ones that hijack a lot of the modernity puppets, and they having to cause some of the other portions of, and whether some other ones with the pseudo. It's not that the pseudo exclusively come from those. And whether desu, whether come desu from, or whether desang, whether on come from, to promote also, whether also, and whether desu, desang come from, or whether desu on come from, or whether desu come from. The probable each, and whether the probable to be of comparatively, whether mainly of whether mainly of recent there. So whether recent adjacent, whether recent there, the probable to be of, and then whether the word adjacent just whether within bracket marks, whether with the bracket marks the probable to be of, and whether it's suitable for whether efforts of and probable for whether recent, and whether the probable of to be of the probable to also. Whether to probable, whether probable of also to be of, to probable of to be of, and whether to probable of also to be of, and whether to probable of to be of, in exchange for these personal protections, which rather by some sort of by natural order, these will have to pay how much? Much more than today, right? And the very change cost certain effort, so there will be in a way greater amount of deal. Right now, just simply idling, and whether not having to change in the effort, or whether the current trend being there, that sort of, and for the other ones, it's besides the effort cost for it, so it's in a way it's even more of a fee that they will have to pay, right? Whether more of a cost for this higher of by natural order, these would have the protections that those gruesome bots are having. Recent and minor citation, whether extra mention, whether minor citation reason that probably could be considered. So a lot of the app makers are not really making apps, but the developers also. They're absolutely sugar terrorists, right? Like in some kind of cocaine criminal gang, working for a gluten boss, whether two or couple, whether some of gluten, whether several, whether few, whether considerable amount, whether fair amount of, instead of minor, instead of whether. Instead of maybe represented whether with at first of, whether at first of, whether just at first, whether at first of, and whether at before the also probably for whether just as for some whether at first of the for which or whether the just for whether minor retrieval of recent whether one phrase couple words in whether recent one phrase and whether couple words and whether more of the probable to each suitable from whether to suitable in exchange for this having a haven, being in the haven and being in different and other locations, whether other locations of havens for personal security. In exchange for the vulnerability states, and whether amongst other words the whether descriptions of the probable to also virtual formulated was probably of in exchange for personal, or whether in exchange for a petty degree of whether pettiness, whether out of pettiness, and whether exchange for personal for protection service there. Counterwise, compared probably more similar to whether same, whether compared more similar to whether more similar to whether similar to whether similar to a recent there of considerable as minor repronunciation there to the original formulated of. Recent mentioned probable of to be considered for whether it's probable suitable for to probable to also to probable of to probable whether to probable to also to suitable for to probable of to also to could be of whether to probable of to could be of to probable of to also to could be of whether to probable of and whether to probable of also to suitable of and whether to probable of to also to could be of to probable of to could be of and whether to probable of to also to could be of and whether to probable of to could be of. A bit out to know whether variants of the recent mentioned set or whether mentions there or whether mentioned set or whether mentioned there or whether mentioned there or whether mentions there. The probable to also to could be of and whether the probable to could be of the probable to also to could be of and whether to probable to could be of and whether to probable for there whether they are the probable for the suitable of and whether to probable for the could be of and whether to probable for and whether to probable to also to could be also to suitable to could be of instead of whether and whether to probable of to also to could be of and whether to probable of to could be of.